6th day of November. Bunch, several pages. So what's some of these acronyms mean here, like GTOR, what is that? What's GTEE?
Oh, so they are.
That's about the difference. The red
The
is what
difference,
you
yeah.
improved and the blue is
Yeah,
what
that's-
that's
Rox could tell you.
mercy.
I was just curious, when you see that, it says / grantor, is that the
Be
grantor?
Be the owner of record.
Grantee?
Owner of record,
Grantee
probably.
Is the landowner, or no, grantor is the
I know, I
landowner,
already
grantee is
emailed
the one
you this.
receiving it.
Okay.
Here's
They were
the-
wanting a
That's
copy
what
of that, so I made you one too.
Thank you.
Galen, there's one.
Thank you. There's what I think the overlay is. The red is what you originally approved,
That's gonna be this one.
That's right.
and then the blue is
The
what you
blue
showed
is the,
us last
that's
week.
what they've added. But did you get that?
There's-
Yeah, right there.
Copy.
Okay, if I
The
email
Thank
new
you.
that,
footprint.
if I email that to you, could you print that?
Mhm.
Okay, because I feel.
Yeah,
like
because then you'd have the footprint
you
inside
need
the
some way to
footprint.
compare it, yeah.
Yeah, it'd make it simpler.
How did you overlay it like that?
Work.
And Mary Kay, is there any way of sending that back out like that to the people that you sent this to?
The overlaid one too?
Yes.
Yeah, I will.
Emmett Cook
'Cause
called
I haven't
last
s- I
night,
haven't
he's
sent
wanting a
that,
copy of
yeah.
this, and I told him to call
Yeah,
your office.
That's coming yet. Well, Emmett won't be on my list.
I told him to call, don't get
Okay,
on the list,
okay.
and he wanted to, and I
Okay.
said, that's fine, just call and give him your email, and
Okay.
then you could be on that list too if you
I
wanted.
just sent that.
Okay.
But I think that would be a good map if he has that one right
Where
there.
it's overlaid on
Now,
top of each other.
This has not been done through, really, the appraiser's office ought to really run this to be, for accuracy. I just did it as, I'm not claiming it's 100,000%, but
Accurate.
it's super close. It's within an eighth of a mile of
Yeah.
being accurate. Close enough for what you're considering.
So this is.
2 mile radius around there and around there,
Right.
nothing.
So is this the Jackson County line right
Yes,
there?
it is.
Okay.
You know,
I need to,
and then Gary, this is the Brown County line
okay.
Then, Gary, you got this other deal, didn't you?
75, yeah.
You got this then the other day too, right? From the attorneys from Hyden Brothers.
No, did not. This is what they're saying.
That's
is
their no-fly zone for say, or that's their fly zone for say, for their airports, because their airport one must be right there and right there. I'm assuming that's their airport.
So
I don't
again,
know
this is
If
the,
there's any way of integrating that on there in a different color.
there. Oh, in here?
Well,
Sure.
that's what Hyden Brothers C wanted to do.
If I have a copy of that, yes.
I mean, to me, that would be kind of interesting to see how that fits in there.
I'm gonna go make a copy of this.
so this is the new one that includes this, is that correct?
Exactly.
Okay.
And Mary Kay now will give us one that shows that one inside of there.
Oh, okay, great.
What I would like to do is see the Hyden Brothers one on there also in a different.
Yeah, that
color.
would be
If
great.
you had them overlaid, then
Mhm.
they would need more area probably to make this work if they had that, with that map I just showed you. That takes a pretty good chunk right out of the middle of there. Well, it goes kind of right here, which there's what they took out. There's what they're saying they left for their fly deal. Well, for the north, see, it's wide open. But from the south, it may not be. And they're proposing going down around Corning here, see, and mushrooming it out like this. Which, that would be a negotiation process. How much do you actually need? Or do they got more than what they need? I don't know. But I would assume, Spencer was sitting right there. I said, it sounds, and Glenn was sitting right back there. It sounds to me like you two need to get together. Iron that deal out. You know, what do you need and how much do you need?
Here's some more of those.
Okay.
You want me to put this on there then?
I mean, wouldn't that be kinda interesting?
Oh, I think so.
I think,
Because
I'm not
this is
saying
the-
maybe we don't need to send that out to all the people that's on the email, but just for us here,
No, for
per
you
se.
guys. Well, this is FAA, as I understand this.
Is that-
This is FAA's recommended
I see.
zone around these runways.
And see, they left this,
Those are registered runways, as near as I know, with the
yes,
FAA.
and they left this chunk here open, which would probably be, no, that's 187.
Yeah, that's,
They're down, okay.
I don't know what that jump is. Well, it's level. That's what it is. Isn't that low ground there?
Probably, that's through where the old lake and stuff
Yeah.
probably was
Yeah,
at.
they don't wanna, you're not gonna put wind turbines where there's a lake. usually. Dennis, Tim thought it would be good, well, on the one I did, the overlay,
Yeah.
to put this in there too, to get an idea.
It just
how that-
gives us an idea what
Yeah,
Henry
you need
Code.
some way to visualize this.
It does, it makes it simpler if it's all in one. Mary Kay is gonna give us one now that has the red inside of here for the old footprint.
Right. As long as my email got to her, she's gonna do that.
So footprint right there takes a pretty good chunk out of this, looks to me like, but maybe I'm wrong. I'd like to see it on here and visualize it that way. 'Cause looking at, doing like this don't give me any comparison for say, comes clear down in here by Corning.
Yeah,
So
that's-
those FARs would be different for ag use than for public use, would they not be?
I don't know, Gary.
What's that
All I
now?
know is Glenn told me that they were registered strips or runways, and I don't know.
Well, see, and the reason he did that was when they come through with this transmission line,
Same thing,
you know,
right. They didn't want that very close to them from the north.
yeah, and they was gonna put that right through his
Third-
mill,
well-
right down that road, just from the south side of him, north side of him.
Well, and,
Did you see where somebody bought that project now? Invenergy bought out.
Green line.
Green line, really?
I just read that
You know
on the
that?
internet yesterday. Yesterday, Invenergy bought out, is it
Clean
Green
line,
Line?
clean line?
Clean Line,
Clean
there you
Line.
go, that's what it, they bought them out.
Okay.
So now they'll be trying to get that thing, I guess, through there. And who knows, they may have land leased already along there. Would that be a problem switching it to a power line versus a wind? I don't know.
The Invenergy contract I was handed, they could build anything they want on it, so.
So see, they may have a lot in Nemaha County for say, who,
Well, let me, what I would like to do, Mary Kay's gonna try to get me that big map that has the townships on it, that's on that door.
yeah,
And I'm gonna try to put wherever that, I'm gonna try to put these on there.
see what it looks
If I
like
can.
then.
And I'll probably try to color code.
Would you not,
One color for Soldier Tree.
some of these early ones wouldn't have to go on there, would they? They're really nothing to do with this.
Oh, the very,
They're,
the
these
northern
clear
ones?
back in 2007.
Those have
okay?
expired.
Yeah, if those
All
are
of them.
expired, right.
I don't know where you
No.
would draw the line at, with 2010 probably would be where you'd start. That's what it looks like to me.
Well, I think we can tell by geography a little bit.
But when you look at, well, there's 14,
Are they sorted by what? By-
yeah.
Date they were filed.
dates.
Do they give expirations on these?
Yeah, it's registered deeds.
Refers to,
14, 2010.
book and
2010.
page.
See, Nemaha Wind Farm, then when you get down here to 14, that's where it is. Boulevard Associates starts it.
Sorry, I got tickle.
Great,
That one's mine, and those are you guys.
Okay.
Good, that looks good.
Wow.
Now, Mary Kay, we're gonna throw another rock at you.
Okay.
I would like
It's not
to-
my fault, this is.
No, I would like to
No,
get
that's great.
Heinen's footprint inside of that whole thing.
Oh, well, I don't know how to do that, but,
I can put that in there. It's gonna-
If he
You
could get
can,
that
or
in
the
there, so we
appraiser
could put that
probably
in a
can.
different color, like yellow or something, that would show that footprint.
I'd be glad to print it. when
I
it's
know,
done.
okay.
I don't know how to do
Well,
it.
I don't wanna create a burden on Betty, but if you want her to do this, I can give her this file and she can take this.
I think it wouldn't that be interesting to see that
I would
inside of
rather
there?
not be responsible for doing that.
That's
'Cause I don't
fine.
wanna make a
Oh,
mistake.
and
Further
this could
request,
be,
you mean?
this could be a little bit.
Both. I don't wanna do it and I don't.
We'll
If
talk
you-
to her.
If you want me to do it, I'll be happy to.
No, we'll talk
But
to
it'd
her,
be more
okay.
Well,
accurate.
you need to take it down there now and I'll ask her.
That's up to you guys.
I'll just.
That'd be
see if
great.
she'll do it.
Yep.
Now, this may not be accurate is what you're saying.
Well, this
Or
is
would
as
you
good
call it
as,
accurate?
well, for sure, this is, because this is what Spencer gave us
Okay.
last week. This red is, I took this, wherever it went, I took this and laid it in there as accurately as I could from this
So
original
let
map.
me take
And I don't
that.
think, I don't think we have that one electronically, that original one. You know what I mean, like a
How do we get it?
PDF or something?
Did they just,
All we have is a paper copy that they brought when they came up and talked to these guys about
put
signing
just a
the
line on a piece
resolution.
of paper? Okay,
All right.
I would point out to all three of you while you're here, this footprint, when you start thinking about whether they can just expand out of that, remember that they supplied this to you on their letterhead. This is their footprint.
Yes.
You didn't do it here.
No,
They said this is the constraint of the wind energy district. You didn't say that.
no, you're right.
They defined it
No, I would agree.
on their letterhead, on their,
And now they're saying they can expand it with no problem, which I don't agree with.
that much.
I don't agree with
Which
that.
is almost double.
Okay.
the
You got one
size.
of those.
I do got one.
However,
I just want this page here.
and I didn't pass the bar, as you all know. Does it all boil down to the wind energy district?
But that's
The
it.
definition of it.
But it's defined right up here, Gary.
Okay, well,
It's
show me.
defined,
Get
let's see,
those.
I gotta find it here.
I was trying to,
If
I
I go
was
down
trying to
there-
make that determination.
I'll run down there and just see if she can do this. And if I take this with me, that's what I want. This is just what they, okay.
Yeah, just show her what you have and tell her.
See if
what
she
you
can do
want.
anything for us.
See what, if she
It's
needs any more
defined by
information.
your map. Oh, yeah, because it's Exhibit A.
Oh,
Exhibit A, I gotta find that here.
be on one of the front pages, it'd have to be there somewhere. That map is Exhibit A.
I think it is, yeah.
Here, right here. In the area set forth in the wind, on the wind energy district attached here to as Exhibit A.
Perfect, you could have passed the bar.
No, no. But that's the key to it.
In the area set forth
That's
on the attached, perfect.
Can it be any plainer?
Right, can't be.
In my opinion, no, but I didn't pass the bar, as you point out every so often. Are they gonna want this email?
I just told Tim to see what information she
I'm
needed.
sure that is going down there, because
He just went with the paper copy,
Yeah.
but yeah, we might need to send the file.
well, she was feeling a little behind. She's,
Did you talk to her this morning
I
already?
did, she'd had a house
I haven't talked to
company
her.
for almost a week.
Uh-oh.
She was kind of glad they went home, and she was feeling like she should be out on the road already doing their on-site appraisals instead of. in the
Yeah, but
office.
in today's weather, today's
Yeah.
weather conditions,
She shouldn't be out today.
I'd give it one more day.
I'll
Let
let you
them
know.
get everything opened up.
We'll see what Tim thinks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's her issue.
Well, I just don't want to be responsible for making an error on that.
Right,
She's
sure,
got the mapping
sure, she's
software.
got the big dog stuff.
And honestly, it would be really useful to you guys to have what Spencer brought last week in her system as a file, so she can work with it.
Right.
You know, do whatever with it. Excuse me.
Most people, I tell you that, we got rid of enough snow, we could go to work.
Dawn, see, have you looked at this?
No.
We'll give the Well, D-O-N-I-C-E. I wonder if that's not, see, there's bear.
I'll tell you what, it'd be a challenge to take that out. I appreciate the information and sure enjoyed visiting with Ed the other day, and you come pretty highly recommended, but
She's married.
But like I said, just a little
The one on the west
background,
side.
you know,
Yeah,
we've
that's
I know
got
She's a classmate of
Oh.
hers, but no, that's not her.
Okay, so she's.
some
this guy
deadlines
is a
that's
sister
coming
to
up, and our
Harry
final
and
deadline's gonna be
Steve.
like
Okay.
February
There's a lot of
28th.
kids in that family, so.
But,
I didn't know. So,
you know, I
okay,
don't know.
That's not her then.
We
but
just
this
can't-
is-
we just don't know what to do. We've got our county attorney involved, and some people think we need to have more people involved, and I don't know, you know, exactly which way we ought to go, and we just
Here, you
would
look
welcome
at this
any
too. I'd read
information,
through there.
and you know, and we could sure get
I
you
don't
in
know
on the
if
loop if we could
Rox
come
would-
up to,
Might
I don't know
talk
how you
somebody
would
into
charge or
giving
what you
I mean,
would
that's
be
open
thinking,
public
and-
information,
and
okay, might copy
that,
those,
but-
if you wanted them.
Well,
you
if
know,
you want me to
that's,
put 'em on
that's
that map,
something
I'm
that
gonna
would,
have to.
of course, be a
Right,
concern
I
to
see.
us, but
It's up to you.
not really. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
we're really interested in getting some help because we feel like it, when you deal with a $16 billion company, they've got a few more resources than we have. Sure. You wouldn't have a problem coming over to the county side then to help us out on this. It's Invenergy. Next Era is who the company is that we deal with, which is Florida Power.
Sorry.
And, you know, and that's our deal. But Tim has just joined us, and so the commissioners, Gary Scobie and Tim Burdick, are here with me. And I'm Dennis Henry, and Galen Ackerman is here, who is a concerned citizen, kind of on a committee that we've formed, and then our clerk, Mary Kay Shillians. So we'll put you on speakerphone, and if that's okay, we'll go from there. Just push that and hang up.
No, press it first, then you can hang up.
Okay, are you there?
I am.
Very good.
Nice to meet everybody.
Hi, morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
And I give the guys a little bit of background that you was come pretty highly recommended from Ed Mahoney at the Community Bank. And so you might give us a little of your background, what you're thinking. I know you're probably pretty much in the dark. If you got questions, maybe we can answer some of them at this time.
Sure. Well, my name's James Neal, and Commissioners, very nice to meet everybody. Thank you for taking the time this morning. I do energy projects, fairly significant ones throughout the world. That's kind of my thing. I also do lending work for lenders of all different types. That's how I come by Ed Money. I grew up on a ranch in Oklahoma, so I guess if you could call it a true love, I love representing Little County banks still in my portfolio because a bit of a side here, I just truly believe they're the backbone of lending here in the Midwest. That's why Ed and I have become so close over the years. But I guess as far as my bona fides with regards to big projects, I represented the Keystone Pipeline when it came down from Canada and went into Cushing. I got them through all the counties, and that's typically what I do for my big energy projects is I get them through the counties with both the administrative approval side and also acquiring all the easements and legal rights of access that they need. I will admit, almost exclusively my representation has been on the developer side. So the company you're dealing with, I would be typically engaged by them. I do not typically represent the county. I'm not saying I would absolutely love and enjoy representing you guys, but I need to be very clear on that, that I'm typically on the developer side. Now, on the good news side, that means I kind of know what they're trying to do. I believe I understand at least the methods we use to get approvals, and I at least understand the traps that are out there. So that's my background in a Reader's Digest version.
Okay, do you guys have any questions that you got
there's just a lot of layers to this thing. And as commissioners, we've never been involved in something like this before. Oh, I guess there's some questions that we have that you wouldn't be able to answer unless you looked over a lot of this stuff for us. For example, back in 2012, we put in a big setback. In 2016, before 1/1 of 17, we rescinded that one and made a new one with NextEra to extend the tax credits.
Right.
And so there's some layers there that we're kind of caught in the middle with. The footprint that we designed this for has probably doubled, if not tripled. And we're concerned inside that footprint that was originally there, how can they expand that without anybody's approval, per se? They think they can.
Right. And that's usually the challenge on these projects. They take a lot of lead time and the project changes. And from the county's perspective, you need to be compensated adequately for doing what you're doing. And you need to be protected adequately for both you and your citizens for the project as it has changed. Now, as to the direct question of can they change the project without your consent, as a general statement, the answer is no. Of course, that depends on the documentation you signed back in the day.
Yes.
However, even if you signed away that authority, you have a very broad power for the health and safety and welfare of your citizens, which will override any agreement you made in 2016. That gives you a broad power, and that's usually what counties rely upon to change things if they need to, and it's appropriate to do so.
When we had our KAC meeting in Kansas City here a few weeks ago, we talked to a lot of the different commissioners down there about wind farms and what their experience with them. In my opinion, they were overwhelmed and they rode right over them and just kind of did what they wanted to do when they wanted to do it. And we don't want to get in that situation.
Right, and that's really, speaking honestly from the developer standpoint, you can throw a lot of resources and usually a lot of specialized knowledge to intimidate, maybe it's the wrong term.
I think that's the exact term.
Yeah, intimidate the local authorities to do what you want them to do. Now, I'd say that no one's bad. None of the companies I've ever represented are bad. They're just trying to accomplish their mission efficiently, and they want you to get out of their way so they can accomplish their mission. And sometimes they try and run over you to do that.
Okay, but our two main things in this deal, the first thing that right now that we're up against, and we had a setback. Our setback is kind of standard for the state of Kansas, 1,400 feet. A lot of our taxpayers are not feeling this is adequate. They think it should be at least 2,500 feet. I don't think we can change that, but maybe we can come to an agreement with NextEra that they would agree, that if the landowner who has signed a contract for a windmill, that they would not put that windmill within 1,400 feet of the next landowner over who did not sign the contract. And so, in other words, they're putting a windmill within 1,400 feet of somebody that really don't approve of the project.
Right.
Our next situation is going to be in the payment in lieu of taxes. Now, I understand these windmills are tax-free for life. They do not have to pay any property tax in the state of Kansas or Nemaha County for the lifetime of their deal. Well, we are supposed to make an agreement with them to come up and say, here's how much money we want as a county in lieu of taxes. And that's the two main things that I really am fighting with. I think the road agreement, the decommissioning agreement, and that I think is probably going to be it's going to be a challenge one way or the other, but them are not the ones that really worry me as bad as this setback thing really is number one on the plate. because we've got a lot of people, and I say a lot of people, but we've got a lot of county people that's already signed up that don't understand that somebody could put a tower 1,400 feet from their brother who is on a farm next to them that didn't want the towers in the first place. So, you know, that's where our issues are coming from and where we're getting a lot of flack right now.
Right. Well, those are always the two main issues, are the setbacks and the pilot, right? Yeah, that's not uncommon, and that should be very, very open, especially on the pilot issue, for negotiation, unless you've already agreed to something and the project has not changed, okay? And by agreed to it, I mean by official action of the county, not necessarily a handshake between a commissioner or the city or county manager. I mean like a full-blown ordinance. So the way to get your setback the way you want it is to include it in the negotiations of the pilot. That's just the most direct answer I can give you on that.
Okay, because see, we've got the resolution that allowed, they came in and they needed a resolution from us in December of 2016 to qualify for the lifetime exemption of these windmills under the property tax. Now, it was our understanding that any windmills that was outside of this original footprint would come in at a 10-year exemption. You know, they would be only allowed the 10-year exemption. Now, last week they came in and doubled this initial footprint to include most of the county, which I suspicion the next time they come in, they're going to have the whole county. But it's hard to tell. You don't know how they're thinking. And when we asked them if they could do this legally, and they said, we feel that we can. So, you know, there again, you know, we're a little probably outclassed. I don't know. I hate to say that word, but
I'll say it, we are. And so, how when it comes down to the nuts and bolts of this thing, if we wanted to retain you to help us, what's it going to cost us?
Yeah, so first off, it shouldn't cost you anything. To retain specialized services and advisors, I would pass along to the developer. And that's just part of your negotiated deal. This is an expense you would not otherwise incur but for this project coming through. Now, on the good news side, they're almost always willing to do that because they enjoy dealing with someone that, what's the right term, that knows the law so they can get through it efficiently. Remember, their goal is to get this done as quickly as possible. They have a mission, and either they run over you or they work with you if they think you're being efficient and can get their timelines met. So the direct answer is they should pay me. With regards to my fees, we would sign an engagement letter and either, you know, my rate's $300 an hour. We can negotiate that. That's not, I give discounted rates for counties and governmental authorities. If they pay for it, then probably I would be reluctant to do that. If you guys are paying me direct, then the only thing I can tell you is I've never had a fee dispute with one client in my life. I'm going to make the number fit with what works in light of the work. That may involve a flat fee if I look at it and think, okay, you know, we can get through this and it's fairly simple. But I will say the developer should pay your specialized costs related to this project. And I assume no one would object to that if that's one of our first requests.
that was kind of my understanding, because see, in the road agreement part of it, we have to hire an engineering firm to check our roads, check the bridges and all that, and they did agree that they will pick up that fee. So, you know, at the same time, I would assume that they would be in yours. They've give us some deadlines, like 12/31, they want to finalize all their acquisitions. January, they want to do a turbine survey. On the end of January, they want to finalize all their land acquisitions. And on the 22nd of February, they want to execute this county agreement. So that's kind of what our timeline is, and you know, that's where we're up against. But like I said, I welcomed, after I visited with Ed, I thought, you know, we don't have time to go hunting who we should really have or what we should do, you know, but like I said, you are in the field, you understand, and granted, you're usually on the other side of the fence, but that may come to our advantage too. So,
Well, I think so, and also I've always worked very well with county attorneys. So your attorney that has represented you probably for a lengthy period of time is extremely valuable to this process. And that also will make you feel comfortable that we work as a team, because I don't know who your county attorney is, but I'm sure you all know him and or her and trust him or her. And listen, at the end of the day, this is not brain surgery. The challenge here is it's paralysis because of the amount of information and the complexity of the laws. But once you boil it down, it's fairly simplistic. So my first thing I want to do is get a hold of the agreements and what they're proposing, and then boil it down to the main issues we need to decide on. Sit down with you as the commissioners and go, okay, here's everything boiled down, and here's the things we need to deal with, and then get some direction from the commissioners, and then we'll go forth and negotiate that. As far as the timeline, that timeline is not daunting. It may, especially on the pilot negotiation, it may be extended out a bit to get through that, but that timeline doesn't intimidate me, no.
okay. Very good. Well, any other questions from anyone?
Yeah, I got, hi James, this is Gary. Would Nextera in this example require that a negotiated agreement be between you working on our behalf or we sitting here on the commission desk side?
Well, first off, I haven't seen everything, so let's begin with that. But the way it would normally go is it would be an agreement entered into by the county and the developer, and I would represent the county to negotiate that. With regard to the fees, it would be an engagement letter between myself and the county, and then as part of that agreement that I just described earlier, they would agree to pay my fees. More than likely, I would have them acknowledge that in advance via email, so we don't get in a spot where they argue that they're not bound to it or something like that. But that's the way I would approach it. Hopefully I understood your question and that answers it.
Yeah. You said, James, that you were involved with acquiring both Keystone and Rockies Express underground pipelines through Nemaha County.
No.
Keystone only.
Oh, Keystone only, not both of them, just Keystone. Nonetheless, you were involved with acquiring permanent easements for that. I suspect.
Oklahoma, not here.
They're from.
James,
from
what
North-
location was that in?
I'm sorry, I'm struggling hearing a few people. Could you ask that a
So
question
you
again?
did, the Keystone pipeline you worked on was two straight down through Kansas to Cushing. You didn't specifically work on the one through Nemaha County, Kansas.
I suspect I did. Frankly, I can't remember. We went through so many darn counties.
I see. Okay.
It didn't come
I
to.
can't remember, but we took it all the way from the border all the way down to Cushing, so I handled all those states and all those
Clark
counties.
County.
If it went through your county, we handled it.
Cloud County's as close as it got to us.
Yeah, I think Cloud County's as close as that, because that was a north-south
Yes.
line, that was that one there.
That's right.
Yeah.
And also I had a team of attorneys working under me, and unless it was a big or unusual issue, I had different attorneys assigned to each state. It was unlikely I dealt with it directly unless there was a problem. Or we had a tough meeting with the county. Usually I was the one that went to that because, well, I'm personable and I grew up on a ranch and I can talk or speak, and people trust me because of that. So.
Nonetheless, you or your firm was directly involved in negotiating those permanent easements.
That's exactly correct.
Yeah,
With either
okay.
the counties to get in one of their right-of-ways or the private individuals, or sometimes it's a railroad because we're going down a railroad
Sure.
easement, you know?
Yeah, okay.
Well, I think we'll, we don't want to take up all your time, and I think we've gotten most of our questions, at least for the basics now. We can get back to you we'll feed you some information, whatever way you want to proceed from here, but we'll talk it over. But I personally, I'm just kind of overwhelmed. I hate to say that, but I don't know whether that's old age is slipping in on me or what, but I don't enjoy the fight like I did when I was 30.
Yeah, I know that. Well, let me give it some suggested first steps. So first off, y'all talk. If y'all want to engage me, great. If you don't want to engage me, that's fine as well. I'm happy to let you at least know some big picture items and some big topics you might want to be careful of. I'm happy doing that, and I can give that to you or your county attorney, either one. If you do engage me, I recommend you send me a limited number of key documents, and I absorb that, then I'll drive out to your county and let's all sit down over coffee or in the office there, and then let's lay out a path, of how we want to proceed. And we can do that very quickly, but that would be my steps I would recommend if you decide to engage me.
Okay, and there may be a chance that we would just come down here to Kansas City too.
But whatever is the most efficient way to get information to me and that we can all sit together quietly and lay out a path.
Well, the problem we run into, and number one, is if all three of the commissioners are there, we're into this Open Meetings Act.
That's correct.
We've got to be very careful of that. And, so I don't know, we'll, outside of a regular meeting, and we meet every Monday from 9 till about 1 or 2. So, whether you'd want to be included in one of them or, because that's really our only legal way of getting all three of us, and the county clerk together at the same time. Now, you could be welcome to meet with our county attorney and maybe one of us or something like that, but that would be maybe my take of that. I don't know.
Well, I think, let's talk about my two goals with doing that, and let's see how best we can accommodate it. Goal number one is I get some key documents so I can educate myself, right, get up to speed. Goal number two is to sit down outside of a formal meeting to develop a plan, and then sit down in a formal setting with the commissioners to deliver that plan and get approval on that plan. And the plan may be, here are the three things we have to do, here is our approach, and then I have my marching orders from there. Now, I do recommend that there be an executive session on our plan, otherwise it's a public meeting and the public will know about it. And let me tell you, they're monitoring your public meetings. I know I did, because I could figure out what they wanted to do to me before I went in and sat down with them.
Sure. I understand that, and that's what we're into. So, well, let us see what we can come up with here, James, and I'll either be getting a hold of you via an email, and we'll come up with some what we feel like are pertinent documents to start this process, if that's what we decide to do, and go forth from there. We're just thankful that you took the time to call us and are willing to help with our situation.
You bet. And also remember, I wasn't being coy when I said even if you don't engage me and you want to do it internally, that's absolutely fine. I'm happy to sit down and give some general advice on things to watch out for. I do charge a chicken fried steak for that, by the way.
Yeah, no, that's, well, our county attorney, right now, we've got it set up so that our county attorney will do the negotiations, which at the last time we was thinking that it should be the county attorney and one other person. Either one of the commissioners or one of the committee members that's here, or maybe you. And, that would be my position right now. I don't know what you're thinking, whether you think one of the commissioners that ought to be in on the initial pilot agreements with them, or have the people we designate to come up with a pilot agreement and then bring that pilot agreement to us. But like I said, the process is is kind of something we got to get down, and we'll get with that.
Yeah, I'll tell you at least my theory on that is, depending on how far apart we are, that will dictate how we approach it. Sometimes you want me to go in there and fight the good fight, and then at some point in time, the decision maker descends from the throne, so to speak, and makes a decision. Yeah. If you have your client, your decision maker there with you, sometimes that brings undue pressure on that person at that moment in time until you get it down to 2 or 3 issues. But really, you would be the client, you would dictate that, but that's usually the way I approach it. I go fight it till I get it to 2 or 3 issues, and then you guys make a decision, maybe one more call with the decision maker, then you put it to bed.
Yeah. Well, understand that, and I personally feel like that for some reason, we're the last cog in their wheel. They've required the land acquisition. They know what they're selling this product for. They know all the cost except for this one pilot agreement. Agreement is about the only thing that they do not have a cost on yet. And we feel like they probably already know their variance of what that cost is going to be. Well, we want to get the most we can get because of our schools and our tax base.
Yeah, no doubt about that. There's been a lot of people that got jammed up on this real property tax abatement and didn't end up with good pilots, and your schools end up suffering for it, as you guys well know. But we can get to that when it's time to get to it.
Okay. Well, very good. Well, thank you very much.
Hey, excuse me, Dennis. Would it, James, be advantageous to engage you aside from this wind turbine company?
As far as my engagement, we can have the scope of work as broad or as limited as you want.
Well, I'm talking about compensation.
I would try and push it all over on the developer.
Okay. Well, I'm just wondering. I was talking this morning with my wife, and I said, if we have to spend whatever, $50,000, that ends up putting another lot of money in Nemaha County's pocket over the lifetime of this, it'd be pretty cheap money, is what I'm getting at. But no, I'm glad to hear you.
Well, see, and that's the next thing we got to determine: when should this pilot agreement be renegotiated? If you're looking at a 50-year deal, But like I said, my first thing is the setback. The thing we got to come up with is what's fair on the setbacks, and then we'll go from there. As far as I'm concerned.
And I'll tell you some good math you can do right now. So let's think of it from a pure incentive plan. So when I do TIFs or CIDs or TDDs, there's a nice little formula for what the pilot ends up being. And there's a robust history in the state of Kansas on how they've determined pilots based upon that. And in essence, the formula is health and safety and education meals are the pilot, right? And you can calculate that for this. And to me, A, that is your pilot, and B, it has to be reassessed. You can't just say today's money is going to be the same money 50 years from now, because we all know that's not the truth, right? So you're very wise to say we have to reassess it at periodic time periods, but if you approach it from a formula standpoint, that formula can survive. A lot of counties, and it's been unfortunate for them, have based it on megawatts, $1,000 a megawatt or whatever. And they just don't stand the test of time. They just don't.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it does. And
If we would engage and want you to help us, what would be the first, would you get in contact with Nextera? I mean, if they're going to be, say, looking at our minutes for saying, we've talked to you, well, they're going to put 2 and 2 together. If we talk to our county attorney here in the next 30 minutes or so and say we want to engage with you, would you, in the meantime, go ahead and get into talks with those people and tell them, hey, they're wanting me to help them? How would that go?
Well, if I am going to lead the negotiations, always my first step is to introduce myself. As you can tell, I'm fairly engaging, and I have a nice demeanor about me, and that has always served me well. And if nothing more than an introductory phone call that, A, I know what the heck I'm doing, and B, I'm not a jackass, sorry to put it that way, but those are important things. Yes, I would do that almost immediately. Now, for whatever reason, if we want the county attorney to lead the negotiations or a commissioner, then I wouldn't do that because I would be behind the scenes, obviously.
Okay. Well, I thank you very much. I
Yes.
don't want to lead on anymore, but I sure appreciate sincerely, and don't tell Ed, but I'll just buy him a steak.
Well, Ed used to pay me with chicken fried steak when he was get me off the clock, so...
Okay, well, that's good. We know how to treat our people right up here. We'll buy you a chicken fried steak.
All right, guys.
Thank you very much and appreciate it. And you're welcome to call me if you have any other questions or email me. There's no problem.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Very interesting.
He sounded like he knew
Huh?
what he was talking about, I thought.
Yeah, I really, and like I said, when Ed was telling me about it, this is a lawyer out of Kansas City that has been negotiations with, he's normally on the other side and negotiates with the counties to get agreements, and
I got the gist of that, and it made me feel better as a
well, and like I said, after your guys and your meeting last week, I churned and churned and churned, and I talked to several different people, and so many of them, their fear, and I know that NextEra says they've got everybody signed up, this is a done deal, we're all gone, everything is good. Are they or aren't they? How many people have signed, how many haven't, and then how many people are that your neighbor has signed and you haven't, and they're going to put a windmill 1,400 feet. And I explained to Galen that I looked at that Hutchison deal and several things on the internet over the week, and one of them was specifically, Spencer Jenkins told, what county is it at Hutchison?
Reno County.
Reno, but he in fact specifically told them that 2,500 feet is not out of the realm of agreement. And now if they would agree to me that, listen, a person that's not signed up, if you'd keep the windmills 2,500 feet from them, I would be more agreeable than 1,400 feet.
It's better.
Yeah.
It's better.
Is it the answer? I don't know, but
My position was, and there's a lot of people, obviously not here, but there's a lot of people that have no idea what's carrying on.
I agree.
I, for one, knew full well about the 2012 resolution and had no concerns of speaking up, because with the 3,000 and 1,500 setback, I physically looked at the plat book and said, I'm not gonna have to deal with these. There is no way, if it's 1,500 foot from a property line and 3,000 foot from a home, we are highly populated enough, this is a non-issue. Don't worry about it. Wasn't even on my radar till as of recently, when I found out that we didn't have those setbacks in place anymore. I spoke to my uncle, who was a commissioner in Jefferson County, Nebraska, back in '05 and '06, and he in a 30-minute conversation, I bet if we were playing a drinking game where every time Uncle Bunny said, I can't believe you don't have planning and zoning, I'd have been hammered in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
But he said that the wind turbines up there didn't come in while he was a commissioner. He said that was after he was off the county commission. But he said back in '05 and '06, they set up their planning and zoning and established a wind turbine zone at the direction of both the feds and the state. You guys weren't at this table at that time, but I went through and he found the information that he said that they sent out to them. And one of the things that it said in there was planning and zoning is critical for this to be
Very
a
much so.
smooth
Sure.
operation.
See, and this is something that, you know, and 3 years ago, you know, we talked about, you know, and when I went to these KAC meetings and stuff, we talked to commissioners and really everybody, this was not a reason to zone.
Yeah.
You know, this here was, wind energy was not one of the reasons, and now I see it's one of the biggest reasons to have
Yeah,
zoning.
and a lot of those counties.
And we
are-
was never brought, it was never brought to our attention in that direction, or we'd have been there. I don't have a doubt in my mind that we would have been
Yeah.
thinking about it anyway.
Yeah.
The problem we run into, and we talked to Saline County and Reno County and some of the different counties that are zoned, Jackson County, and they all said, well, the reason we're zoned is we live around Salina, we live around Topeka, you know, we gotta be zoned or people would take unfair advantage of our situation.
Yeah.
Well, it was all about living conditions and how to control what people was doing and who would live where, and, you know, and can't build a trailer house, you know, park, you know, in our county and this and that. But, never once was this.
Of this issue.
See, and I'm surprised because of the pipeline that went through. You know, and some of the things like that that's happened in Nemaha County that zoning really hadn't been part of that issue. But that being said, you know, it's probably, I don't know whether it's too late, but
And there's a lot of people against it, and at the meeting that I was at in Centralia, it just, I found it humorous at least that you were getting chewed out and because by people who felt that we need these setbacks for these wind turbines, but when I brought up planning and zoning, I thought I was gonna get my throat cut before I got out of the room. I mean, a good.
Well, they don't
person-
think
a
it
person
through.
who is a very, very good friend of mine looked at me in a way that he just was adamant that, you know, this is terrible. My whole feeling is, if you wanna be able to tell NextEra that they can't do this, the commissioners have to be able to tell you that you can't do something. It's just it's a trade-off.
well, it's an information game, and I don't think that any of the county commissioners in Nemaha County really was kind of informed on that this is something we need to have to protect.
Yeah,
You know, zoning, and that was not ever presented to us as a,
But they're building
Yeah.
these in zone counties too,
You're-
so
you're-
it's
you're
working
building-
wherever they're doing
and
it.
that's,
You
I
know,
will tell you, my uncle said, he said it's been really good for Jefferson County. He said, and they've got good roads, they've got good funding for their schools, but he said, we also have our wind turbines in an area that is sparsely populated enough that there aren't issues. And this is where NextEra, when they say we have these around homes and there's no problems, my Uncle Bunny, his exact comment was, he said, there's not a problem because where they are, the people that live around them are making a lot of money.
they're owning them.
They're getting the payments from it.
Yeah.
He said, we don't
To
have
put up
those,
with,
those
nuisance.
areas where they're at, we don't have a lot of homes that are people that live on 10 acres or 5 acres or, you know, in my case, I own a quarter of ground and I don't feel that I'm well protected enough, even though I know
Well,
that the ground across the road from me is my mother-in-law's and she sure as hell isn't gonna sign away her rights to her property.
yeah, and like I said, it's,
And there's a lot of people in this county that have signed leases. I was talking to a customer the other day whose neighbor has leased his ground, and they were out drilling and doing something on his property, and he had no idea they were out there till he got a check in the mail for damages. And was obviously not aware that he had signed away the right for them to come onto his property and use
without
that
any,
lease.
without any
Yeah,
permission.
they don't need to let him know that they're doing something, and he,
That's a contract.
and this is an
And, yeah, and that-
80-year-old man that didn't realize, and I've got numerous customers that are in that category of, they have absolutely no idea what they signed, and that's a big part of why I've felt like I've got to get involved, because I feel like they've taken advantage of some people.
Well, you had some folks in attendance last Monday who had signed up and have since discovered some of these things that are alarming to them, including what they could accidentally do to a neighbor without meaning to. They had, it's an unintended consequence, but it's still a consequence. So that's where the setback piece is really
that
important.
sounds exactly like what happened in the northeast part of the county in 2012 when the setbacks were first.
And I will tell you that these folks, I can go right through this list. I would tell you that everybody on this first page for sure that were signed up would never sign up.
Again. Right, yeah,
They're
oh, yeah.
in fact some of the folks who asked me to do the very first meeting up there to help inform neighbors,
Well-
because they didn't want their neighbors to fall into the same
You're right.
lack of info that they did.
And the lack of information that's been out there on a lot of things that are taking place is what, there's a lot of people that just don't have any idea of what's carrying on. And I was one of those till a few weeks ago. And I think that, I don't know how far along we are. I said last week when I was here that I by no means want to take away anybody's right to lease their ground to the wind turbine. But if we're down to the pilot agreement being the only way to deal with some setbacks and so forth, I think it's immensely important that we get involved in it. One, I think you guys have got to stand your ground on their use area.
Well,
With this
that part
tax
of
exempt
it
deal.
is a legal question now, and that's where this fella here comes into play. If we want to engage with him, you would send him all this stuff. He would look it over, and he would give you an opinion on whether we have any leg to stand on. To me, they should not be able to expand that thing, but
Dennis, do you know how
You
to spell
know-
this guy's last name? This James Neal. No.
N-E-A-L-D.
and in my opinion, we need to make a decision today whether to engage with him,
Okay,
because
that's what I have.
he need,
I'm
if
sure
NextEra
that-
gets wind of this 3 minutes for say, whatever, they don't need a head start,
And I got
per
it.
se. They got a
Yeah,
big
I like
enough
it.
start on us the way it
James-
is.
James Neal.
He needs to
That's how I
be
spelled it, N-E-A-L-D.
engaging with them and letting them know that he is gonna be the person in charge, for say. We need to talk to Brad about that, but in my opinion, we're overwhelmed, and there's no question about it, Brad's gonna be overwhelmed. He has never been in something like this either. It sounds easy, but there's a lot of
I
layers to
sent
this.
you that,
I
so
will-
it shows
I'll tell
what
you
his
that, Tim, that
lawyer company and
I'm
all
very
that.
glad to hear you guys saying that you're overwhelmed. That's not a good thing, but.
Well, but it's just an honest.
Recognize the fact.
Admit it,
Well, I mean, if we tried to say that we could do it, oh, yeah, well, you could probably do it. We talked to commissioners in Kansas City, they did it, and they got it taken advantage of.
Yeah.
I could see it right across their forehead.
Yeah, they
We
said
just
it-
threw our hands up after a while and just took what they give us.
Well, there's one thing that I wanted to bring up, and I talked to my wife about this on like the engineering firm with the road and bridge part of that deal. Ask her, if there's firms you're looking at, ask her about them, but ask her specific questions. She can't come to you and say, these guys suck, but if you ask her specific questions about them, she can answer those questions, and she deals with
Cause she deals with probably all
a
of them.
huge chunk of those engineering firms in the state. And she knows the ones that are good, she knows the ones that dot their i's and cross their t's, and she knows the ones that don't even come close to dotting their i's and cross their t's.
Well, ABK is
I
like
hate
LEC.
it
He's been in here
because,
trying to get ours too, but.
You know, I'll trust
but we-
anybody
we
till they
still have
give me a
Centos
reason
there.
not to trust them.
That map right
Yeah.
there, that's in front of Galen, that is a screaming red flag for me. If I was doing business with somebody, I would be done
Well, there's no
doing
doubt
business
about
Yeah,
with them
no
on that
kidding.
map.
I don't think we have
that
any
floored me.
problem with saying that's a
I
red
would
flag.
walk
That's
away
why
from
it's
the
in
table.
red.
The problem is, I don't believe that we're in a position to walk away from the table anymore.
That floored me.
It's possible.
Really did.
It did. It floored me too, so.
And like I said,
That
Well-
map's the reason that I'm here today again. That map is also the reason that my intention of sitting in the back of the room and just hearing what was going on last week. I opened my mouth a lot, and that scared me. And number one, a big thing with that, in my mind, if they really want that, they actually don't have a conditional use permit. Because,
Like I said, that's a legal
because there
question,
was
and we
no
need to get that
notification
answered.
of that region.
I agree with you, but we don't know for sure without a really legal expert looking at that.
And we can't, you know, and like I said, I asked him the question and he says, we feel we can do it.
Yeah.
You know,
And
that was his answer. Well, you know, unless, we can sit there and argue and argue and argue,
Sure.
but it's up to somebody else that's over our head to say, listen, you cannot do this, and if you wanna do it, do it. Well, hell, a $16 billion company, first thing they can do is take you to district court, you know, and then you gotta hire a lawyer that's 3 levels over Brad, or like this guy in Kansas City, and it's gonna cost you millions of dollars to find out just if that's legal.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why they say, we think so, because I got a feeling that they can,
Push it.
if they come to push it, that they know that we as a county probably don't have the resources to even come close to them.
Find it.
So put in your pilot agreement that, if they bring suit against you, that they pay the bill.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree, the
I mean,
pilot
they want
agreement
this
is where we
project.
need to be thinking.
They want this project, guys.
Yeah.
If their profits are what I think they are in the
Yeah.
$400,000 per turbine per year range, net income, they want all
Of
they
course they
can
do.
get of those
Well,
puppies.
why not?
When we looked at this agreement, Galen, where
Which one do
in
you
here
have?
did you say, okay, this is pretty, you're emphatic that this is, what paragraph was you looking at there?
Okay, if you look at, right here, in the very, I'll underline it.
Because Betty and I was just reading it down there, and that's what was taking us so long. Okay, in the areas set forth on the wind energy district.
Yeah, you were out of
attached.
room. I
But
posed the
then,
same question.
Betty goes back here and says, where's exhibit A?
Oh, it's there, it's the
On the
map.
backside of the
But
page.
there's nothing on exhibit
No,
A
it's,
here.
the map is exhibit A.
Okay,
That's-
because
and
you look at it, and where does it say it?
Well, it is. And
Typically-
Tim,
Yeah, I hope so.
it's on their letterhead, Tim. Look, I mean,
Yeah, I
that's what they
understand.
submitted. No,
It's- I'm like Betty though,
no,
whoops.
it's exhibit A.
Okay.
Exhibit A usually will be in the contract, when they put exhibit A, they're that is like a cover page for that
What
exhibit.
comes out.
So
Whatever's
that
following.
would be my proposal anyway, is, hey, there's no question we need somebody like this fella.
Yeah, I don't know how much time we got to go on the hunt and search thing, and like I said,
Well, but it's not just
I had
that
a
though,
couple
does he
of
understands
conversations
it all?
with him, and
When you get a recommendation from one of your prominent local bankers that's had a long history with an attorney like this, you better pay attention to that, is what I
well,
say.
that's what I thought.
Well, but
With
just
expertise in the area.
after the
Right.
visit, after his visit though, he puts it in terms, like I said, it makes sense.
And I don't feel like that, even if we paid for it, that his fees are gonna be out of line.
It'd be-
You know, I
Gary
mean,
said
I
it-
was thinking, $100,000 for somebody.
Gary said it well. That may be
You'll
the
need to go down to the
cheapest
strength
investment
office.
you make
I agree.
in your tenure.
Well, and if nothing else, gotta feel better.
Well, you've
You
done
know,
the
I
right-
mean, and,
done the
cause I
right
don't
thing.
like to go to sleep at night, and and after the meeting the other night, and all
My
I
jaw's
can think
been hurting
about
for a couple weeks, I
is
know I'm
this
grinding
setback
tonight.
thing. And every time I went to the internet last week, it was nothing else, I didn't care about the pilot agreement, I didn't care about anything else. I went for setbacks, and I read and like I said, I was short-handed last week, and I didn't get as much done as I wanted, but I read a lot on setbacks last week, and
Can I make a comment? My research indicates that as time goes on and as communities and other local governments become more aware, setbacks tend to increase.
yeah, well, that's what I
And
mean.
what's that tell you?
Yeah.
It tells you that finally can quantify the true impacts and what the necessary setbacks are over time. Okay, I believe that. You
See,
learn
and to
over
me,
time.
and like I said, if you as a landowner, and you got a house and there's
Sure.
nobody lives within a mile, if you want a windmill 1,400 feet from that's fine.
They can negotiate that.
I don't
That's
care
their
about
business.
that.
That's right.
But I'm gonna tell you what, for you to put a windmill 1,400 feet from your house that don't want it, I don't think is right.
No, and I think Darren needs the county to protect him because he has no
Yeah.
other option.
Sure, and the other thing that they had, in that situation, I found several of them, instances where they've come to you as a non-producer and non-deal, and they said, well, I'll tell you what, we'll give you, $1,500 a year hush money.
Yeah.
You know, and
I've
that
got a good
bothered
friend
me.
in
That
Iowa
really-
That's exactly what
They
he
did.
entered into,
Yeah,
and he said it was the stupidest thing I've ever done. And he said, we get $2,000 a year for our little 10 acres that we've got outside of town. And he said, I've got a wind
And he
turbine on-
can't
he's
complain
got
now
one-
because he signed that.
And he's got one 1,500 foot either direction from his
Yeah.
home.
And that's too close.
And he said, my home's not worth squat. They actually lived in a camper at a lake for 2 years. And he said, no, he said, living with my wife in a camper is worse than living between the turbines, was what the conclusion they came to, but he said, we literally have a
Well-
house that, he said, we cannot get out of our house
Yeah.
what we still owe on our own.
Yeah,
At least we got the right.
that's sad.
Cause
I guess.
nobody wants to
Yeah.
live there.
Morning.
I guess,
Or actually afternoon.
What's that?
Good afternoon.
And the one thing I did after the meeting
still
last
not-
week,
That's
there
okay.
were a couple things that come up in my mind. I'm not quick enough on my feet, but
Congratulations.
Dennis,
Where the other ones wouldn't have to do that. They had them built before
Yeah.
that went out. Wouldn't you say that would be fair to, I'm just thinking out loud. When we signed that at the end of 16, because it was leaving in 17, 1/1 of 17, it was over. If you had them built before that, there was the taxing, there was no big deal about that footprint per se. All of a sudden, we needed to have a footprint to sign for the end of 16. And so that's what they made, was a footprint. In my eyes, you can't widen that footprint out unless we agree to it. Okay, everything makes,
Well, actually, Tim.
well, but the what I'm saying is, well, you're probably right, there's probably a state statute in there that says it's gonna be a 10-year exemption. It's not up to us to agree
That's
to
my
that.
point. That resolution is clear that it's that upside down T-shaped
Yes.
for township. That's, you can't all of a sudden extend that
I agree with
and
that.
give lifetime
No,
forgiveness.
it's not, that's not our call.
No,
That would be the state
you would have to do
of
a new.
Yes, and when
conditional
you
use
do that,
permit.
all of a sudden, now it's a 10-year, because we don't no longer,
That's right. You can't offer.
Be all right.
he says they can, well, it's all.
The original,
In
I
2016.
don't, I would just, without knowing all the ins and outs, it just sounds to me like, okay, be easy. Let's just expand that, but now we're gonna want X amount of dollars over here, but that's not our call. Because now you're messing with the tax thing that we signed, well, now you're outside of that footprint. I don't
Well,
think that's gonna
even,
fly.
Gary, you sat right here a month ago a little over and you drew two X's.
I
And
know
Brad-
it.
And Brad said, he agreed that inside would be lifetime, outside of that. would
That's
be-
correct, but
And then
there's,
Spencer sits here and says something completely different.
see, there's
Well, but he said,
misinformation.
he kinda agreed to
Yeah.
that, but he said we'd have to talk to our attorneys that
Well-
particular day. Now he came back and he said, no, we feel like that's
Hi,
gonna be,
Rich.
which I
well, he always says, it's
You can
in-
say whatever you want.
he always says in our opinion. We
Yeah.
can do this in our opinion.
Just be careful you don't get railroaded into something you didn't intend.
But boy, there's, cause I talked to Bob Scovey the other day, and he was at one of maybe your meetings. And he was adamant about the fact that if they expand from that original footprint, that those would also be
Did we?
tax exempt for a lifetime. And I said, Bob, that is not the way I understood it.
Yeah.
And I sit right there,
Yeah.
so
10 o'clock in the morning.
he was convinced, along with everybody around him, that that was the case.
Did they?
I
Which is
agree.
what,
Very dangerous
which is what Next Era
situation
wants.
yesterday.
Absolutely.
Well, there's places that still is.
Really.
Back roads, country roads.
Well,
went through that 2016 resolution and listed off the people that were here, and there were 18 people present, and only 2, I guess, opposed. The advantage that NextEra has in all of this with your meetings and the influence that you see out of the community is that they have a list of all of their allies. They have a list of everybody who is signed
Signed
the
up.
contract or is excited about this for the extra income.
Sure.
So they're able to, when a meeting like that occurs, they're able to get on the phone the week prior and get people
Well,
here.
look at all
And
the
whereas
press.
for us, for anybody else that's not in agreement with what they're doing,
Well, there's,
we rely on what's in the paper. Well, like I pointed out, what's in the paper is past tense.
It's a week old.
well, the notice wasn't, but let me, Mary Kay just helped confirm this. The language for the notification for that 2016 public hearing was provided by NextEra, right? They placed the notice in the paper and they
And
paid for it.
And
They
I didn't
phrased
even
it.
get a proof of publication. I mean, we have a copy of the paper, we keep all the papers, and I
Right.
can find it in the paper. And I have now a copy of what was to be printed, but
But on,
yeah, we didn't do any of that.
right, so on what Darren just said, as near as I can tell, that was never in the Sabetha paper. Mary Kay always sends her, something, the Sabetha paper always gets the
Normally,
public
when we
notice, legal
publish
notices.
something, yeah, we
That
put
one
it
was
in both.
not in the Sabetha paper. Well, the 19 people that were here for the 2012 resolution were all from the Sabetha area. So they would have had to subscribe to the Courier, and they would have had to know.
Sure, I understand that.
Well, and the rest of this, the language of, if you were gonna put a notification in about townships, would you put the legal description or the,
Township names.
you would put the names, they're not in that notification. It's just
Right.
the.
Legals.
Township
Yes,
range.
and the resolution 2012,
Section township range.
2012-8, you would have phrased it as a setback resolution. It's just in there as 2012-8. So even if you read the notice, you would have to know which township and range goes with which number, because the names were never in there. You'd have to know what resolution 2012-8 actually was, because it's mentioned. So it's the bare minimum legalities in the official paper, I get that, but not, tradition here is to put it in the Sabetha paper as well, because we have two. We're kind of a weird county, because we kind of have two, most counties have a county seat town, and that's the
Right.
main. We don't have that, but
We have
we've,
two
our workaround
second-class
is our
cities,
county
yes.
clerk informs. Well, that didn't happen.
State law dictates that,
So-
that they have put it in the official county paper.
My
Which we
point-
usually do it once in
Right.
Sabetha and twice.
Right.
My
in
point
this-
is that,
Sometimes, yeah.
that you had 18 people here. Well, at the 2012 meeting, you had 19.
Yeah.
But you didn't have any of those folks here that I know of. And I'm pretty sure, I've talked to several of them, they would have all been here had they realized.
Sure.
Had they realized, and by the way, the newspaper headline on that same edition of the Courier says something about wind farm in 4 townships. It's limited to 4 townships. If I read that, even if I did read it, Berwick Township, I see Riley, Red Vermillion, Wetmore, Harrison, I'm thinking, that's fine. That's not gonna bother me. I already know that 5 miles away doesn't bother me. Go for it, fellas. But when you add in that it lost the setback, so Dennis, I totally agree with you. The setback is a huge,
Well,
huge
and
deal.
then the fact that they changed the
Oh,
footprint.
very good.
Yes.
Project.
Good afternoon, Brad.
Good afternoon.
Hi, Brett.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Guys did
Pretty
well.
exciting.
Yeah,
They
Kids
did
excited about that.
game's gonna cost me a lot of money.
great. How's that?
I'm gonna have 2 rings to buy.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
One for
yes.
my senior player, one for a sophomore manager. My wife saw Summer Garber with a pendant that
Oh, yeah.
mirrors the ring, so she's gonna want one of those.
Of course.
That costs as much. Then the t-shirts, hoodies, blankets, coffee
We
mugs.
won't, we ain't gonna feel sorry for you. I tell you.
And I guess I'd rather pay that than not pay.
There you go.
That's
You
right.
better be thankful.
It'll be fun
That's-
paying it.
That's
Yep.
right.
I thought maybe you waged a bet against
Yeah,
that,
that's what
and
I
I'm like,
thought.
oh.
No.
Yeah. Well,
Nope,
that's-
that was a fun day. That was fun.
yeah, it was good. That's wonderful that they can do it. And all went off well. It's
Now,
always
you know,
nice when the kids are pretty well all healthy and.
And that was the nice thing. There was one player for Pratt who went down and he walked off the field, so no serious injuries, and everybody got home safe.
Well,
I'm
good
sure we
deal.
frightened some folks with all the sirens in town when they.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if the phone didn't ring a little bit. with
Well,
the
Brad, to bring
sirens.
you up to speed, we have,
Yes.
we had a phone call, and maybe Galen will share you the conversation with you, you know, with, but I was introduced to a lawyer in Topeka, James Sneed,
Speaker,
Need,
Kansas City.
N-E-E-L-D,
Speaker, Kansas City.
Kansas City. And he came from Ed Mahoney's recommendation. He's represented them in many different deals, negotiations and this
Yeah.
and that. And we had a conversation with him here this morning, and I thought we need to look at it pretty seriously
Sure.
to help you
Oh, yeah.
and get you more comfortable, because he normally represents
The
Nextera.
developer. The
He
developer.
normally represents a developer.
Oh, really?
Because he took the Keystone all the way down through Kansas and he
Yeah.
negotiated for them. Well, but he also feels, got a light for the small counties and he said he would be very interested in helping us.
So is
And-
he actually representing Nextera, or is he representing companies like Nextera?
He,
Like next.
yeah,
Okay, that's. a
he's
good
never
difference.
represented Nextera.
No,
Okay.
no, yeah, no.
And, but like I said, he's always been a developer side.
yeah.
He hasn't been on our side.
Yes.
But, and Darren was here for most of the conversation, but like I said, you maybe can get that conversation from
Sure,
Galen
you bet.
and how we talked and proceeded and,
You could actually
And,
listen to the tape, right?
Yeah, I can send you.
You know,
Yeah.
and he, I guess we'll be able to hear his conversation.
but his recommendation is even if we would retain him, that we pass it on to Nextera.
They would pay for it.
They would pay for it because they want people that are knowledgeable and that when it's done and
Sure.
But he'd be glad to work with you,
Great.
per se.
That would be
You know,
great.
he
Oh,
could be the lead person, you could be the lead person, however we wanted to work it out. What we would need to do is have a sit down with him.
Yeah.
Send him some of this information, let him digest it a little bit, and then come here and meet with us.
Well, and the biggest thing, my biggest concern in handling this myself is not the negotiating of the price, because that's really you guys. I'm just the messenger essentially. It's making sure that the 3 agreements that we would be entering into, that everything is covered.
yeah.
And that's where his
He's got
expertise
expertise
would
in
be very,
this.
very helpful, absolutely.
Well, and I feel comfortable after I've talked to Ed, you know, and just different things, and he introduced me to him via email, and we've had some conversation, but, I've got a good feeling about him, I don't know, you know.
Yeah.
But
And
anyway,
his idea was to meet with us eventually and then make out a plan. How do you wanna proceed?
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing on that is probably the resources that he has probably greatly exceed the resources.
Oh,
that
sure.
Of course.
It's come on, no,
Now,
our initial exploration in moving back to Nemaha County started with my wife meeting with your predecessors about them considering hiring a county engineer. And her advice to them was, you guys, Nemaha County can't justify a county engineer because of the, she said, you can hire an engineer, but unless that engineer has resources that the county has to work with, you're gonna be paying consultants anyway. It was not a good idea, as much as she would have liked to have had the job.
Yeah.
It just didn't make sense, and that's what I see with a firm of this nature. I'm assuming it's a larger firm with a lot of people, because that's what you guys are gonna be up against, is a legal department that is, I had a taste of what Helena Chemicals legal department was when I worked for them, and it was unbelievable to me. They had an entire floor of the building that was.
it's minor compared
was
to this country.
attorneys and
Oh,
legal
sure.
aids and so forth, and
Right.
they're peanuts
Yeah.
compared to what this company, I'm
And
sure
that's,
is.
that's the thing that I felt like it, you know, if nothing else, you know, we was talking about, well, one of us would go with you and help you with the negotiation. Well, what value would we be?
well,
Outside of just
the thing
knowledge
that,
that we gained off the internet, you know, this guy has knowledge and, you know, and I think our feel-good situation have to increase 110%.
well, 2 things come to mind. One, as far as Nextera paying his fees, I would have real concerns with that, because that creates an ethical problem for him. And if,
Well,
if he's
reimburse the county.
maybe
is what
they can reimburse the county.
Reimburse.
Well, of course,
But by
okay,
the same-
however,
but
that's
any
kinda how you
agreement-
meant
But
it.
any agreement, even up
Yes.
front, that Nextera is gonna reimburse us for his fees, that's a little shaky.
And either way,
But our
but
engineering
don't like
firm the
our,
same way,
they're
And
gonna
that-
pay us,
That's different.
on account of,
They're not bound by the rules of ethics that attorneys are bound by.
yeah.
And
But,
so
and that's
if he-
something
for
you
instance, I'm
can,
representing Gary in his divorce
well,
from
that's
Leslie.
something that you,
But Leslie, the agreement is that Leslie's gonna pay my fees.
yeah, I don't work.
Ain't gonna
Well,
work.
see, I
So-
posed that question, and what did he say then? He said,
He said the normal procedure, and he says we would be retained by Nemaha County, kinda like our engineering.
Yeah.
Tony?
See, and
It
our
would be that
engineering
way.
deal would have it.
Sure.
See if there's anybody around.
See, the engineering company would be reimbursed by NextEra. And he says if you get these guys, and they would reimburse if
Yeah, you
there
can
is a
come
fee.
in, and
You know,
then
they
as
would
soon as
pay
they're done with this
50% of it or
discussion,
whatever, I don't know.
they
That's
can-
something you can deal out
If
with.
you want, but you can
If we
feel free
would
to sit in the
decide
back.
and
It's
you don't have a
open
big objection
meeting.
to it,
Come
you know,
No, I
we
just-
could say,
in, seats in the back.
you know, let's go forward with this thing and talk it over and see what's going on. And I think there's value there.
Yeah.
I really do.
Oh, and I think especially, like I said, as far as if we end up in agreement with the contribution, whatever that amount is, like I said, I mean, negotiating that part is really, because it all comes from you.
I know, but
I mean, it's
we
like-
would feel better and
But I
and when
think-
taxpayers come to us on this
Yes.
negotiation part of it. But my initial
That's
problem is this setback thing.
well.
I mean, that's right front and forward now. I don't care what kind of fee they pay. You know, if we're gonna have half the county mad because they got a windmill sitting 1,400 feet from them, to me, it's getting us new setback if we can get it changed, get something done there
Yeah.
and make it agreeable to everybody, then I am 100% for that.
And what's gonna happen, that's gonna all come down to their engineering, to
And,
what.
and like he said,
What kind of setback can they live with and still make this function?
sure, and he said that all be part of this pilot
Yeah.
agreement,
Yeah.
so.
I
but-
guess I'd like to give those guys the benefit of the doubt by saying they're gonna put a 300 megawatt farm here. And the closest turbine they're gonna be to your house is 2,500 feet
Yeah,
or more. Now, is that gonna happen? I don't know, it'd surprise me, put it that way.
yeah, and if,
You're gonna, excuse me for a moment, you're gonna give who the benefit of the doubt?
This wind farm company, that they would surprise us and say, we can do this and not put a turbine any closer than 2,500 feet to anybody's house, whether they're leased or not.
Well, but the lease
But they would
person
agree
could
to that?
negotiate that however they feel
Is that
like
what you're
it.
saying?
I mean,
Yeah.
They own the property, and if they wanna go 500 feet, I don't care. But the person that don't lease their ground and don't want it within 2,500 feet for say, ought to have that right. You ought to be at least 2,500 feet away from anybody that doesn't want one.
So,
In my mind, that number at the bare minimum should be the 3,000 feet.
And that's all in a
What if they
negotiation
said- What if they
process.
said, we're gonna pay you $10,000 a year to put it 2,000?
I won't, that's up to me, that's my choice, and I would tell them no.
Okay. Do you think
And I,
everybody would?
honest to God, would. No, not everybody will,
Yeah.
because
No, you're
I
right,
don't
but
think
but that's
anybody has, I told Galen the other night when I was talking to him, that the lease payment, that when they came around to me, and it's been 6, 7 years ago, and I can relate, I told one of my customers the other day, I can relate to where you are right now, because when they approached me about this was when I was first starting Fox Run, and we were living off my wife's income and pouring money into Fox Run. So a $2,000 a year lease payment looked pretty damn good at the time. And at that time, my wife and I sat down and we discussed it, and as tight as things were for us at that time, I'd have been willing to pay $2,000 a year to not have any of them in the view of to the east, southeast of my home.
yeah, and that's,
I would pay $2,000 out of pocket to keep them from being there. And so, no, it wouldn't affect me, but I know it would affect a lot of other
But I think a
people.
lot of people.
And I
it's
agree
like the
100%.
gentleman who sat over here and said, listen,
If you're okay with it being there close to your home, that is 100% your right.
yeah,
And I realize that to my view is a long ways from the south, looking out to the east, southeast of my house. And I realize that I don't have the right to control 2 and 3 miles out. But I should at least have that right to keep them at a reasonable distance from my home. And the challenge is, the more research that I've done on it, the farther the reasonable distance seems to be, you know, from looking in areas that, the gentleman made a comment the next era gentleman made a comment the other day that we've done, residential property value studies in Kansas, and he referenced Lincoln and Ellsworth County. Oh, Google Earth is a really cool thing. Go to Lincoln and Ellsworth County and take Google Earth and look at where those wind turbines are. And it's very much like my uncle set up in Nebraska. The people that are close to those wind turbines, if you look at it, and I didn't go to the extent of digging a plat book out, but it's pretty apparent that most of the people that in that rural area that are affected by the wind turbines are also the people that are receiving payments from the wind turbines. That they both of those counties have a rural population density of less than a third of what Nemaha County's is. The overall population is half in one and less than half in the other, but when you break it down to just the rural, you take out the community populations and figure out what's out in the rural area, there's very, very few. And that's why when people throw me the argument that, well, they've got these all over the country and very few people complain. Well, there are very few people affected by it that aren't receiving those payments.
Well, my biggest problem, the original footprint, when I looked at it, pretty much a non-populated area.
Yeah, it's a
And the people that down there, 60% of them, 70% of them signed.
Yeah.
They've already signed this thing here.
Yeah.
You can look at the names and go right down through from the county line north. Okay, but when they come up here and when they start getting up here, the Stringtown Road and around, populated areas.
Yeah.
And we're gonna run into more of problems with people, what you're, as a landowner, imposing on your neighbor, whether it's your brother, your mother, or whoever it could be. It could be anybody. But you as a landowner have the right to do that, and to put a tower 1,500 feet or 1,400 feet from your house is pretty much beyond. But that's why I feel like we need to do something with maybe this gentleman here, get it going quickly.
Yeah.
The quicker we can act, I think the better off we're gonna be. Now, that's my feeling. I
Disagree.
Yeah, Lincoln County only has a population of just over 3,000.
yeah.
It's
And
kind of,
Ellsworth is about 6,300,
Well,
6,400.
And
It's ironic 'cause-
3,200 of that, I believe, 3,000 to 3,200 is the city of Ellsworth.
Is
Yeah,
that right?
Very,
Yeah,
very sparse. I mean, I grew up in McPherson County, and so we used to hunt in Russell County. And those are very sparse. That part of the state is, the rural population just isn't out there like it is here.
They're
Tim,
spaced apart further
Yeah.
than they are here.
Tim, okay, and this is kind of several different branches of the same conversation. The question really comes down to, with setbacks to protect those who are non-participating, and no requirement for setbacks for the participating landowner, can the project still go? And the answer is absolutely. And the reason is this: all you do is spread your turbines out. It does cost a little more to put in the cabling underground because they may have to put clusters, but it's been proven in flat water that you can cluster a wind farm and still make it work. So is it as convenient or as cheap for them to install it? No. There's still apparently plenty of profit margin to cluster them out and honor both the non-participating landowner and yet let the project go for the participating landowner. If you look around, you'll see the very thing. It just,
And that's, my uncle up in Jefferson County, he said it has worked well. He
Yes.
said the people get along with it just fine.
Yeah.
Now, he also pointed out that, he said, our state legislature wasn't ignorant enough to give him a lifetime tax exemption. He said he could not believe that he said, why on earth did they do that?
the wind industry couldn't believe it either, but they loved it.
And
Yeah.
he said, so.
Still love it.
They didn't have that, like, I don't know if anybody's researched this since the last week's meeting, but is it gonna hit our county valuation enough to affect our school funding?
oh, definitely.
For them, it was a non-issue because he said the income from the property taxes, he said they went on tax rolls and started paying property taxes as soon as they went up.
But by the same token,
And he
I
said
heard,
that.
back to the school argument, I heard somebody else tell me So what, we wanna keep our valuation of our property low, so our school districts benefit from having, I mean, poorly valued property? That seems like a really stupid argument.
It is a
Well, but
double-edged
what
sword.
that argument is say a $360 million wind farm, if that goes on our valuation,
Yeah,
we go from 167 to 4, whatever the heck, 500 million.
yeah.
And all of a sudden now they lose out on the 25% from the state aid because we jumped so much in valuation. In my opinion, that shouldn't even add to our valuation because
Oh,
we're
it
not
shouldn't.
getting anything from
You
it.
shouldn't,
But it does.
But I don't know that for a fact.
we don't know that.
We need to research
So
that
that-
because I still,
I think the reason some of the schools and they're so alarmed is because of our pipeline that went through. See, and
but they're
that,
getting it wherever that
well, they're
went.
getting in them particular
Well,
units, but they're
That's the way
not,
this will be too, though.
well, but that's only a third of the districts that, their taxing districts, there's only a third of them that's in there. Well, the valuation in Nemaha County went up, maybe 200 million at that time or whatever it was. Then you're sitting here and if Sabetha School District only got third of that, I can see where they probably got woke up when that went through.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was a trigger, very well could have been, maybe not, but moving forward, I think we need to pursue this situation.
I do too.
Get it, and the sooner the better.
And maybe you guys can
You
talk
know,
sometime this week for say, just to get an
And-
understanding.
Because,
And we need to get him some information so he can understand what's going on and move forward with a meeting with us,
Yeah.
right here.
And the brightest thing in his conversation that struck a chord with me was do that pilot as a formula of some sort.
yep,
That was,
Because
that
very
made me feel a lot better.
With
But
just
he
like
didn't wanna
that
base it on
was
megawatts
key.
where everybody else did,
yeah.
because the megawatt can change.
Yeah.
He had a different formula he wanted to use,
Well,
but
he
anyway.
acted like that formula would take into consideration 30 years from now.
Yes.
What that payment ought to be.
Right.
Because of what
Well,
that
yeah.
money is at that time compared to
They might
what
not
it is
even
now.
use megawatts in 30 years.
Because-
Maybe it's something
Because
else.
my understanding is that you guys can establish that pilot agreement, because aside from the setbacks, I firmly believe they're gonna change the landscape of this county, and we better benefit from it as a community. And if, as part of that pilot agreement, you guys could go so far as to say that, okay, according to Betty, the valuation starts here and the taxes would be here, but after a commercial property, depreciation, they're gonna land here and it'll flatline. You guys, there's nothing that says that you couldn't say, okay, we're gonna start it here, this is the flat line, and this is what the pilot agreement is from here on out until you guys decommission these things 20 years from now.
And there is a mindset out there, and I'm just, when $7 corn came up, and people just, that all had kinda happened at the same time, all the land was coming out of the soil bank. That just kinda conveniently happened about the same year so that people would take it out of there, plow it up, plant it to corn or beans, whatever. Okay, you go talk to probably 60% of the people that are south of Corning and Goff, and they're gonna tell you right now, all the ground that was tore up and brought out of that has no other place in this world but to be in Brome.
Yeah.
They don't need to be trying to raise corn and soybeans on this land because it just ain't there. It needs to be, well, and then the windmills come in and it gives them a chance to say, well, maybe this is a way we get back. There's just things of, I don't know whether I relate that wrong, but I do know there's a lot of people down there that plowed ground up and put it in there. Well, now they can't get it back in the soil bank, and they're kind of in a fix. But really, that's all that land is good for. It's good brome ground, good pasture ground. It's there, but with the rain is not the problem. The other issues, and that's mine.
That's also why a lot of these leasing agents got the finger when they were through here 6 and 7 years ago. And on farms that they got signatures on this go around.
Sure.
Because
Sure.
when these
Okay.
farmers were making money, they weren't interested in these leases near to
What do
the
you
extent
think?
they are now.
I think that was a great phone call.
Well, I'd say, Mr. Chairman, let's give our county attorney the authority to pick out whichever documents he so seems
Well, he did what you-
prudent to send to James, is that his name?
James Need, yeah.
James. I
Yeah,
mean,
let
we
me-
don't wanna inundate him with
If I could-
thousands of pages,
If I
but
could get a copy of that recording and then listen to that and talk to him
Yep.
directly
Right.
and
Would you be,
go from there.
have you be able to work with Brad on that?
Yeah, I'll get you whatever you want. Soon
Well,
as
we don't wanna, and like I said, we can belittle the project forever and ever, but we need to understand that we've got things we need to get done.
Yep.
And in a timely fashion, and I hate to say it, but I slept well already Thursday night after I talked to this guy. You know,
Why didn't you tell me about it?
I really did.
I slept like a baby, I wasn't here a week ago.
I love the idea of bringing the guy in because it's not like this is the only guy I have on my plate.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and he's
You can
not
work
the
as a
only
team
person.
somewhat.
so absolutely. So this is great news for me.
He's not the only person in the world, but
No.
he is a lead, and
But
like
if he's got
you say,
expertise in negotiating agreements like these particular agreements and making sure they include everything that because we can't think of what's gonna happen the next year. We need to
Exactly.
be forward thinking, what's this gonna be like in 20 or 30 years?
Yeah.
And I'm retired and living somewhere south. And not putting up with crap like this.
You guys want this back, what do you?
I have
Well-
something I'd like to add here a little bit to, just to follow up on comments that Darren made earlier. I've never put it in numbers with regard to what it would take, or if they offered me what it would take to put a turbine close to my house. I've never done that, but I've spent, however long was that, when did this project go in up north of Bern?
2010?
2010.
I've spent ever since then, and when they came down and started leasing in our area, mulling that over, whether, first of all, if that's something I could live with, secondly, if there were enough, if I had enough information to sign a contract. And to reference back, Tim, you asked me a question last week when we were talking in terms of setback. What setback distance I would be comfortable with. I've been mulling this over since 2010, and I still don't know because I don't think I have enough information. I wouldn't, that 2012 resolution, talk in terms of 3,000 feet, I would say maybe that's a good starting point. I don't know if that's enough. I simply don't know. I'm not saying it's not, but I don't know. I've driven around and watched my odometer. I've done that with this farm up north of Bern. I've done it, driven over to Beatty and driven around over there and talked to people a couple of times, and I still don't know. I'm uncomfortable with leaving that up to an energy company.
Well, the
Oh,
thing
of
is,
course.
Very.
And that's why I planted that seed last week. Our pilot agreement, there has to be some give and take from them and us both, probably. What will that be? I don't know. That's why I just asked that question. What would 2,500 feet be sufficient? Well, we don't know. That's still a given, we don't know. But
I would prefer you go in with the mindset, with the negotiating, it's a take mindset instead of a give mindset.
I understand.
of course,
And then
but that's
back
why
to Darren's situation, he was talking about, if they offered him $2,000 as a non-landowner or non-participating person to have a windmill 2,500 feet from your house, and take that to the other hand, as like Marion County told us, and you say, well, I ain't gonna accept that, and they said, well, that's fine, we're gonna put the windmill there anyway, you'll just be out of $2,000. And I'm telling you, that's the way these people think. If they've got it, if we don't get it in this land and pilot agreement, we need to get it in that agreement to help protect as much as we can. Agreed?
And
That,
I'll say this too, I personally think that the county you guys should really consider moving forward on a planning and zoning thing too. I don't think it's as overwhelmingly expensive as what we think it is. But you've also got this clean line deal that's fired back up that they lost in the courts, I guess, and that could come through.
Invenergy bought them out, by the way.
Yep, to protect the community, Seneca, these communities it's gonna go around.
Well, I didn't realize you could split a county on the planning, and to me, we could go the Stringtown Road north, or the Kelly Road in north, I don't know, to split the north half of the county that's more populated to be into that, I don't know where
I don't know,
the
that's
area
something-
would be, but I mean, there's
Well,
something to
I'll
consider.
give you a heads up on that. Right now, Reno County is having tremendous regrets that they didn't zone the whole county.
Are they?
Yeah, doing
Well, I
half
think-
would be suicide in my
Well, I think you
opinion.
zone the entire county, but then you can set up different zones within there, and different restrictions based on the
Yeah.
different zones, as long
In
as
other words-
they're based in some sort of fact.
Yeah.
But
The-
getting
yeah.
that, or working toward getting that implemented, and I don't claim to have a clear understanding, but it concerns me a great deal. I feel like, with regard to residences in relationship to these wind towers, we have no protection now.
No.
And I'm one of the first that historically, most of us, I think I speak for most of us as farmers, we're somewhat independent minded and don't like regulation. But I don't know that I like what I see on the horizon now and not having.
I'm sure people, if they understand,
I understand.
and once they sat down,
I'm the
if
same.
you initially just say
I
zoning,
agree.
they're gonna go, and all they can think about, of course, here we sat in the city of Seneca or city of
That's the
Sebastian.
problem with the zoning.
You're
thing in a
gonna have-
sense of- Most of the people are zoned in Nemaha County. Where do most of the people
Yeah.
live?
In the town.
Seneca and Sabatha. They're both zoned.
Or right around those areas.
With a 2-mile radius around it.
3-mile radius.
So, yes and no. I
There's,
understand.
there's a difference though, if you think about it, guys. The industries that are zoning or lack thereof would have impacted in the past would have been oil and gas, but that's state regulated. So, but now all of a sudden we have a brand new industry called wind energy and perhaps solar that are not state regulated. They're not locally owned in general, and they are, never before has anybody even thought about putting up 500-foot tall anythings widely in rural America. So it's a new game. It's a completely different situation than it would have been in any part of history up until now in this county, because of the differences. Not, the similarities are few. There are very few similarities to any other industry we've ever been approached by.
And
magnitude is
you are
something that
somewhat
we don't-
already zoned in the fact that at a certain level out on the farm, you end up dealing with state
KDHE.
statutes.
Yes, we've got the
So it's already there and.
It's just
and
a
there's-
little more of an arm, another arm to it, if you do
It is
this, that's
another arm,
true.
but yet it can be, that arm of it can be far less
Extended out.
restrictive than where you're already at with the state level.
Well, and then the next issue, and I've watched Seneca progress, and I've seen some of the most heated arguments that I've ever seen in a setting like this from zoning.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
and I mean, when you come in and you say, well, I'm building right here in the middle of Seneca, and I'm gonna put up a Morton building.
by my house.
Yeah, well, my lord, you can't do that. That's not include, boy, and I mean to tell you what, people just, I mean,
So
and I've
we hear
seen
you.
it, and that's,
You know,
that's the other side of this, but we'll have to go.
Overlay that with, and I expect to maintain good relations with my neighbors. That said, overlay that with my neighbor telling me they're gonna put up a 500-foot tower, right?
I understand that, and like I said,
It's the
there's,
same argument, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're right. I mean,
And I just,
looks and being around it.
I'm kind of slow when it comes to, I'm kind of slow when it comes to arriving at the right conclusion, but I'll acknowledge that maybe. But I've been chewing on this for 8 years now, and I still don't know, and I've talked to people that have signed leases, and they
Don't have a clue.
did not absorb and understand it, some of which, and I haven't talked to a lot of people, some of which already deeply regret it.
Oh, yeah. Well, and that's what I said. It's something that happens and like I
It's
said,
been around forever.
had we known, yeah, you know, there's a lot of things we could have changed if we would have even had some hints 5, 6 years ago that this is the way we needed to go. You know, I mean, but it is what it is. We gotta go from here forward. We can't go back
Right.
2 years and change it.
We're gonna get the best situation we can, whatever that may be, and I still think we've got some negotiating here that can be in our favor.
But
We
anyway,
understand that when we say we need to make sure that's in our agreement, if the agreement only works if both parties sign it.
Exactly.
yeah.
So
And I
We
will,
can't force them to agree to anything.
So
Oh, I
what
understand
happened,
that.
okay, under that
Yeah.
scenario, what happens if, let's just say you want to set back at 3,000 feet from non-participating residents, or even, let's just say a mile. Somewhere along the line, you come across studies and see studies that talk in terms of a mile. Okay, let's just say they won't agree to it, what happens?
I mean, that's why I think
We
we need
cross
this
this
guy
Whether
over
it's,
here.
whether it's that issue or some other issue.
Yeah, but this attorney that we talked to this morning can give us some of that information. He understands this stuff a lot better. Now, he works with these people, but he's gonna be there to try to get an agreement, okay? Don't you get, Galen, you feel like, and you guys, this guy is gonna try to get us together. Whatever that is. Is it 3,000 feet? I mean, there's gonna be give and take, and no matter what anybody thinks or does, if this goes, it'll either be 2,500, 3,000. To say it's gonna be a mile, it isn't gonna happen. I can tell you that right now. If this project is gonna happen, if we say, oh, we want a mile from any residence, okay, a little bit of common sense, okay? I guess that's what I'm gonna ask today.
That having been said, you've negotiated before, Tim. I'd rather, if it's a negotiation, they want to start at 500 or 1,400.
I understand. I planted the seed last week. I didn't say that was the stopping point, but he didn't say no. He said, well, sure, we negotiate that. So until we get further into this,
It's
we
kind of
can
like
sit and talk all day long and it's just talk. I mean, we don't know.
If you're negotiating a car and I walk in the car dealer and say, I'm gonna give you 5,000 for that new truck, well, he's not gonna do that.
Sure.
There's a certain point in time where he's got his bottom line where I've gotta make this much off that truck and I can go to that point, but I can't go.
And you figure it out.
But they're the exact same way, like Galen's talking about, there's a certain point in time where we kill the project. Say, yeah, we can still make that work, we can still make that, so we can't do that, because under their engineering, they figure out we can't have enough generators to make this project work. And we have to find out what that
But
point is.
I guess my question is, does that kill the project? Because they're saying that this pilot agreement is all optional, that this isn't something they're mandated to do, but they normally do. So
Well, actually, it is, Mary Kay.
It is?
The resolution 2016-8 requires.
that's true, yeah.
And both sides has to.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you do have your foot
Well,
planted to some extent.
I think
if they
so.
want that
And that's
lifetime
what I-
exemption,
Yes,
yes.
that's-
how much that's worth,
I will
that's
say,
something to be
Brad, I
determined.
hope you understand that you guys have the leverage. You have the leverage.
Well, the key is this, is that if they won't negotiate on setbacks to where we're satisfied, I mean, we do have the ultimate authority in the sense that we can zone the county. It's a huge deal, and I don't want anybody, and you pointed out, there are good parts to zoning, there are bad parts. I put up a 6-foot privacy fence around a terrace that I had at my house, and I had to cut 1.5 inches off the top because it was 1.5 inches too high, which pissed me off.
But anyway.
So there
You
are
know,
gives
I
and takes
think
with
it's
zoning.
good talk though. We've learned a lot in the last several weeks. And we're gonna continue to learn.
You know, gentlemen, with regard to their comments with regard to being willing to negotiate, and I haven't spoken personally with Glenn. Glenn Heinen was sitting here, and if I understood him correctly, if I remember correctly, they tried to reach out and communicate with them as far as 2 months ago, and have heard nothing back. And he says, when he's sitting here in front of everyone, that he's willing to negotiate that. For me,
That's still part of our pilot agreement in a sense.
I feel
mean,
like that's,
we gotta take care of
that's
that.
allowing a little glimpse around the corner as to what their,
And that's why we
what
feel
their
like we're a little
negotiation
overwhelmed,
is.
and that's why we wanna get this other guy on
Yeah, I
board.
think that's
To
great.
where he understands what's going on. Then he can give us feedback, as you can, Brad, if that's, if you know, and we move forward.
Yeah.
Whichever way that is.
When you, if you'd have been in on what I was listening to, you'd
He's
feel a
pretty
lot
good.
better. I feel a lot better and proud of you guys
Yeah.
for doing what you
and I
did.
apologize.
I also want to
And
thank
that's
you
okay.
guys.
I know.
I'd like to
because
have been here.
It would have
a
been
lot
a
of
good
people say
comment.
that
Hey, he's got it
that
on
county
tape.
commissioner job's just gravy money.
Suppose
And
it's
I
so.
made a comment to a
He's
guy
gonna
the
listen
other
to
day,
it.
I said.
And it
I
would
told
really
him, I
worth your
said,
time to listen to it. I
these
really
guys are
enjoyed
gonna
it.
earn their
Just
entire
curiosity,
tenure
if you
salary in
represented
the next
the
3
others.
months.
No, I, like I said.
You are,
I
and I
would be
appreciate it.
curious to
And
know.
the thing I hope everybody
he's
understands,
always
that I don't
seen it from,
represent the third district,
He was on the developer
represent
side
Nemaha
of it,
County.
always.
you know,
Which
I'm not,
understands what
I
they're
don't
looking
care.
But I'd be curious to know.
Do
whether
I have a little
he's been on
soft,
the
no,
flip side
I
of it
really
too,
don't.
but-
As far as I'm concerned, I
If-
get
if
more
he's been
phone
on
calls
that side,
from
then
Tim
he-
District.
He
Then there's
understands
knows
what's
where the
going on.
weaknesses or
There you
holes
go.
are.
And like I said, he's gonna do this though, he's gonna try to tie it all
You
together.
want those,
Which
Dennis?
I
Do you want a copy of it,
I
or
don't care.
And
we can have Mary
need to
Kay
get
run a
the
copy
class-
off, and then we can
No,
keep
I
one in
still
our
think
file?
How many do you want?
This is not a done
One?
deal.
Okay, I'll go ahead.
in my opinion.
No.
It's not
We'll
a.
have Mary Kay.
They're
kinda fun to look at, but I don't know.
I have to think.
I don't think there's
would
any
want more
action.
people that signed
I wouldn't
up
mind having
that's came in
not
and
back
said
to
they
7,
don't want
but
them
from
to do it.
14
So
on.
we
Yeah.
can't
That's
just
several
say, okay,
pages
just
there.
because a
Okay.
handful for
All the new
17,
ones.
Kill the project now.
Yeah,
for
you're
the
right,
people that
Gary.
did sign up.
But
Now, whether
you know
they
what
sign
I
up,
find
don't know
interesting?
anything about it, that's
You know what I find interesting, Gil, and I just went through a deal where a bunch of people fought J6 for putting a hog farm up down our Bancroft.
Yeah.
They needed 100. He said they needed
I would
100, they had
guarantee there was about
95
20
is what
people
he's
at
trying
that
to
meeting,
tell
and
me.
all 20 of them
Yes,
signed
he
up.
said they had 100, or they needed 100. is what he said.
All 20 of them have signed up
Did I misunderstand?
on this deal here to accept this and put a windmill right next to their house.
How many acres did they say they needed for that farm? Last week.
I wanted, no, I don't know, they had 40,000 acres, I don't know.
No, that was in the footprint.
Yeah, I don't know.
I thought he said 100,000 is what he needed, and they had about 95,000 of it leased up.
Yeah.
Now, Galen, you probably know if I'm way off here, and I never did calculate that up in terms of geography, but I was thinking they said they needed had 70,000 signed. And
That was at this meeting here?
Last week.
Yeah.
And I thought they said they had essentially a commitment on 100,000.
That's what I gathered. I have to play the tape back to
Okay.
confirm that.
So
But-
essentially that's total 170,000, and they only had 70,000 signed.
Actual
And a
signed.
commitment on, so they essentially, as I understood it, and I'm not sure that I did, but it was my understanding that they actually needed a signature on it.
Do they or don't they?
What's that?
Who do they or don't they? How many they have signed, how many don't they? Who's
Nobody
gonna
really
challenge
seems
him? If you're sitting at your kitchen table and he says this thing's a go, no matter what happens, you know, this is all there and everybody's signed and, well, you know, you can challenge it, but here's the list of the people that have signed.
Right, and I understand that.
You know, and that's what I said. I don't know where you say what's really right and wrong, and you don't
Can you
know,
lay that next one down out here? I have a thought.
but thank you for coming in.
Yeah,
man.
You guys.
So what if,
You're on that
Take care.
email list, right? To
Yeah.
get a
Yeah,
copy?
and I haven't done
And I
that yet,
didn't-
but I'm going.
Well, I know,
Okay.
nobody's got them yet, but,
Sorry,
Okay.
last week was a short week.
you know, I don't know, Mary Kay, if you wanna wait, next week, the appraiser may have the
Well, I can
overlay.
just do another one. I'll
I'd
just do
get
this
it.
one and
Once you
then,
get the list made up.
yeah, and then if I
Okay,
need to do
that's
another
fine.
email, I'll do another one.
Get them this one,
Yeah,
that's the one we're gonna send. Okay, that's the old footprint in red, the new footprint is in blue.
Or purple, however color that is.
So is, what I was gonna ask about that, is it possible that, because remember that it was NextEra's decision to give you the footprint, because they gave you all the documentation, right, for the 2016?
For this
Right.
footprint.
That one, yes. So is it possible that in the leasing process, they did not get enough acres in there, inside the red, and had to expand
Yeah.
to get enough acres, as you guys were talking? I don't know.
Maybe, yeah.
I don't know.
Well, they've picked up several acres right up 63 Highway, I can tell
Okay,
you that.
okay. So anyway,
You know, if you look at that list right there, they've picked up a lot of acres.
Has anyone ever sat down and figured out what?
We just got this list.
Just
got it today. We went and made it.
Excuse me. That's okay. I got the feeling early on when they were stopping,
she
Yes.
just emailed this to me,
wanting
and you
a
just-
signature pretty
Can you just
bad.
ask her that?
Yeah, I'll-
Yeah, just stop by.
I didn't know that
I'm
I
sure
could
she can,
believe
but
what
I
they were
just
telling me.
Have her do that. 'Cause
I've learned,
I don't have access to that.
you know, it's
Well, I've had
easy to.
people and they said, well, mom and dad said, well, here's what they're telling
Yeah, we
us.
can make copies.
And the kids are saying, oh, come on, mom, you know better than
And just
that.
let them know that.
They
it's
ain't,
for
they're just wanting
So
you to
that
sign,
they're
you know,
not
and I mean,
charging.
they're using some employees, but these guys, and I told them, I said, okay, and I asked Lauren, I said, Lauren, am I wrong? But I said, these two poor guys, Spencer and Mark, I said, they're pawns for a group of corporate type people. And they call them up on Monday morning and said, I want 24 signatures this week. I don't care how you get them done. You know, and Lauren says, that's just the way they used to do with me. And he said, and I'm gonna tell you, it makes your gut turn when the head of Federated calls you and says, listen, we gotta have 10 policies this week. I don't care how you get them done.
I still don't feel sorry for these two guys.
Oh, I'm sure
Oh, you don't, but
I would rather see them, I suspect it's more accurate to see them as well-paid employees as.
they gotta have a
as
job.
two
And I
pawns.
mean, you know, and granted, but I'm gonna tell you, I do know what corporate pressure can put on you. And I don't think you've ever felt probably what corporate pressure can do to you.
I don't doubt that, but I still
Yeah.
don't feel sorry for them.
Oh, no,
Yeah, I don't either.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, so they're well paid
Yeah.
for what they do.
Yeah.
Have a good
When
week.
they stand in a meeting, that gets rocks and stones thrown at them, and they're paid to have thick skins and deflate.
They walk away with $250,000 a year,
Yeah.
probably at least.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, and the thing I like about where we're at right now, and we're late in this process, but I like that. Because we do have the nuclear option. We can zone our cannon, we can put setbacks to kill this thing. If we really want to.
Make any copies, okay.
And they're so far into this process with the
Did you
the energy
misplace
they've
something?
already
trying to
committed
remove
to
all this
sell.
stuff.
They don't wanna
And they
back
don't-
out.
They aren't gonna want to back this thing out. And they do, I mean, there is that point where they can go so far and keep this project going, and I think we need to figure out where that is. We need to figure out where that bottom line is, if that dealer can sell that truck. And now, the problem with our nuclear option is that stack of people have already agreed or are looking at getting X number of dollars per windmill. They're not gonna want us to kill this thing, so.
I do like, I guess, the idea that the non-participant and the participant across the road going to him and saying, what would it take for us to have one 1,500 feet as opposed to 3,000 feet? Would you take 10 a year for that?
Oh, yeah.
Well, most people are gonna say, you bet I'll look at that for $10,000 a year.
Rox took the original and is gonna scan it, okay?
Okay.
Since you wanted the email, so she'll bring that one back.
Yeah.
I forwarded my conversations with this James
Good.
Field and of how he was introduced to me and all the things, got his
Very good.
information and bring you up to speed with that. But I really, gut feeling, I feel pretty good about it. I really do.
It'd be nice to have somebody to make sure the Ts are crossed.
You
and
don't
Is
have
are
to look
dotted.
every damn little thing up that everybody wants to do. He kinda knows where all
original.
this
Yeah.
stuff is.
Oh,
So your
that's good. I got for
conversation.
you.
No, I got what I
Okay,
need.
I'll give it to him.
Thank you,
Yeah, oh, I
Galen.
think
Yeah,
so.
thanks.
Have a
Well,
good week.
Jalen,
You need to
you're a
make sure
saint,
you
man,
listen
appreciate it. No, I don't know about a saint, but
No, that's-
you're good at what you do.
How that.
Yeah.
Do you need anything from me?
Make sure we are.
I'll get Brad the copy
If
of
Brad,
this.
Yes, I
if
didn't
Brad,
look at that side of it. He is an
needs
attorney.
something,
That's why you're
you know,
saying
we'll,
this.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
yeah.
He has some ethical things that he's
So,
bound by.
that's something that you guys need to
We need to have
discuss.
that
then.
discussion.
Galen, you're gonna give him that
Has he
video to
represented-
review.
Yeah, except I realized my camera,
I
I got
don't
the audio.
The audio, you're gonna get
I'll
that
get
to
that
him.
He
down.
didn't get into that
That'll be
part, he
fine.
did that express line, or that Rockies one that went all the way across.
Yeah.
To Keystone, not
It's a
Keystone,
pipeline.
yeah.
Yeah, they're a little different animals.
And of course, like he said, I got a whole bunch of people underneath me.
Well,
They were negotiating in Oklahoma, Kansas, South Dakota, Nebraska. Any problem area though, he went.
yeah.
But these other people took care of what they could. And so he was the lead person.
Yeah.
Brad, I will email you a Dropbox link to that
Very
as
good.
soon as I get it uploaded.
Excellent, yeah.
And the
No big
video,
hurry, 'cause-
looks like something happened with my camera partway through, so you may not have video, but you will have audio.
Excellent.
Okay,
Excellent.
very good.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Galen.
thanks, guys.